blog, and she also writes for the Houston Chronicle. She's setting up her PowerPoint.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Like Sister Thayyiba said, my name is Wardah Khalid, and I am from Houston, where I blog for the Houston Chronicle as a religion blogger. And my co-presenters so far have talked about traditional forms of media like satellite television and local news, and I'm going to talk a little bit about social media. So let's just talk about really quick, what is social media and how do we define it? So social media is web-based and mobile technologies used to turn communication into interactive dialogue. That sounds a little heavy, so what does that really mean? So basically what we're doing is taking traditional forms of media, such as telephone, email, instant messages, and making it more interactive so that you can engage with your communities in a better way. So this includes social networking sites, internet forums, blogs, photo and video sharing websites, instant messaging, podcasts, things like that. So I have a couple of links up here. Who can identify the types of social media that are up here? Just call them out. Facebook, okay.
Google Plus.
Google.
Picasso. Twitter. Yeah.
Yahoo.
Okay, awesome. Looks like you guys are well versed in social media already. So how does social media affect Islamophobia? What does it have to do with Islamophobia? So the important thing to remember is that Islamophobia, and the brother kind of touched on this earlier, is it serves to further a political agenda in a lot of cases. And when it does that, it often reaches the masses, and the masses are often uninformed about what exactly is behind Islamophobia, and we come up with events that are listed here. So anti-Sharia legislation, where people are trying to make it illegal for Muslims to practice their basic tenets of faith in the US. The Part 51 controversy, better known as the Ground Zero Mosque, that was very heavily influenced by social media. The Quran burnings in Florida, I'm sure we are all familiar with that. The current 2012 presidential election, filled with Islamophobia. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but Michelle Bachmann and some other Republicans who currently are engaging in an attack where they're saying that the Muslim Brotherhood has come into the government, so things like that. And then the recent mosque attacks that we saw during Ramadan, unfortunately, was a clear indication of Islamophobia and how the general public may not know exactly what's behind all of this anti-Muslim rhetoric, but they'll go and attack Muslims, innocent Muslims in their communities. And so it is a very, very real issue that we have to deal with. So how has Islamophobia manifested itself in the US? The brother earlier mentioned Anders Breivik, and this Anders Breivik is a really good, he was the Norwegian shooter who last summer shot a lot of students at a Labor Day camp. And this is a really good example how Islamophobia is not just a US problem. It's kind of a global thing, but we're seeing a lot of it in Europe and America. And if you look at this graph that I have up here, this is talking about Breivik's manifesto. This is a 1,500-page document where he wrote his entire political thought process, why he did what he did, how he thinks the world should be, we should not have other races in Europe, his anti-Muslim, things like that. And if you look at it, he quotes a lot of prominent Islamophobes, and many of those Islamophobes are actually from the US. So he's using US rhetoric to support his claims in his manifesto. And here I've listed a couple of, or the graph has a couple of names, like Robert Spencer, Daniel Pipes, Pamela Geller. So we're going to go into these people in a little more detail. So who are the US influential Islamophobes? We've got David Yerushalami first. He is the man behind the cut and paste anti-Sharia legislation that I mentioned earlier. Literally what this man does is he's written some anti-Sharia legislation or anti-religious law legislation, and he will peddle it to different states and say, oh, you know, I think you should introduce this bill. He'll find some Congress people who support his claims, and he will literally give it and replace the name with the current state. And this is very unfortunate, but he's been very successful in several states. So this is a guy who's definitely somebody to watch out for. Robert Spencer, who I mentioned earlier, he's the co-founder of Stop Islamization of America, and he writes Jihad Watch blog. He was cited 162 times in Andre Breivik's manifesto.
Excuse me, I just have to make an announcement. MashaAllah, we're over capacity. If I could ask the people who are standing in front of the doors to find a spot on the other side of the room. We're now a fire hazard. If you leave the lecture hall, you will not be allowed back in because we are not letting anyone back in. Thank you.
Can you have the lights there, please?
They're filming, so it would interrupt the filming. If it does,
Thank you.
is that okay? Maybe.
Afterwards. Afterwards.
I don't know. Can we half of it? Can we film? Can we take out part of it? Part of the lights. Can we take out some of the lights, not all of them? Thank you. There we go. Thank you.
Okay, so we were talking about Robert Spencer, no problem, and how he was cited 162 times in the manifesto, which is appalling. And he works closely with a woman named Pamela Geller, who also writes a blog called Atlas Shrugs. She's also a co-founder of SIA with him. She was cited 12 times in his manifesto. And finally, we have Daniel Pikes. He's the founder of the Middle East Forum, and he writes at danielpikes.org. And he was cited 18 times in the manifesto. So what do these people have in common? Well, they're using social media quite a bit. They're using blogs, they're using their websites, they're using everything they can to personally influence the Islamophobic movement, which is unfortunate, but it also tells us that we as Muslims can use the same tools to counter this Islamophobic movement, combat this Islamic movement, and make some progress so that we are no longer, just the victims who are having our mosques attacked, who are having people hurt. This is unacceptable, and we have the power to change that. So, how can we use social media? Social media is not that difficult to get into, actually, and Facebook, Tumblr, and Twitter are very easy ways. If you don't have, who here has a Facebook? Okay, what about a Twitter? Tumblr? Okay, we have a few Tumblrs. Okay, so by now I think most people have a Facebook. Twitter, if you don't have a Twitter yet, get a Twitter. You don't have to tweet to have a Twitter. You can follow people to have a Twitter. And it's just a great way to keep up with the news and find out what's going on and stay informed so that when something does happen like this, you're the first to know about it and you can react in a positive way and you can encourage your community to react in a positive way. So what can you use social media for? You can use social media to get news out, your opinions out. You can publish photos, videos, and links to informative and interesting articles with your networks. If you are an Islamic community and you have an event coming up, you can market that as well through social media. You can tweet about it. You can link to other websites. It's a very, very good way to communicate with other communities and the general public as well as news media sources. And finally, another way is through a personal blog or by contributing to an existing blog. All of these people that I just mentioned earlier, they're very active in the blogosphere, and they know how to use social media to get their message out, and that is something we can definitely use. So for example, I'm going to use myself as an example here. So as Sister Tayyiba mentioned earlier, I am a religion blog. I write a religion blog called Young American Muslim in Houston. And I write about local, national, and international topics, probably on a weekly or bi-monthly basis. And anything that's going on, I will, in my life or in the general communities. For instance, when Osama bin Laden died, I wrote a blog about my reaction to that. During Ramadan, I wrote a blog kind of what it's like to fast or how my family likes to give Ramadan gifts to our neighbors afterwards. It's a really good way for people to see a real, true Muslim and what their opinions are, and how their opinions don't always match what the Islamophobes are saying, that Islam, is bad for our country, or, Islam and America don't mix, things like that. This is a very real way to say, hey, that's not right, and here's why, and here's a real Muslim who's living a daily life, and this is what she does, and you can see that. So one very positive thing that has come out of this is I have a lot of readers who will write to me and tell me that, my blog is the only way they see how Muslims really are. And I actually had one reader write to me during Ramadan, this past Ramadan. He said, I feel inclined to tell you that, thanks in no small part to your blog, I visited a masjid here in Houston for iftar during Ramadan this year. It was quite a moving and enlightening experience. So I followed up with him, and I found out that he told me about how he went to the mosque, how he ate dates and some red drink, which was ruafza. And he really enjoyed it, and he's actually very interested in Islam now, and he wants to learn more about it. And so I told him, if you need any help, let me know. And so this is just a very great way to be in touch with people, and it shows a very powerful impact that you can have. And finally, I've got screenshots of my Twitter. So, you can interact with other people through that and talk to them and release stories to your readers. So it's a great way to get involved. There's also several other blogs out there, like 30 Mosques in 30 Days. I'm sure everybody's heard about that. Moon Watchers, which directly addresses the Islamophobes. YouTube videos like Deen Show, and websites like Muslim Heroes, which show real Muslims out there who are doing great things. And it proves that they are not what the Islamophobes say they are. So finally, just some tips and tricks for you if you're just now getting into social media and you want to use it to combat Islamophobia. The very first one is to start small. Don't go out there after this session, eager and enthusiastic as you are, and start a Facebook, a Twitter, a blog, and start writing for somebody else. That's a little bit much. Start small and narrow your focus. If you start very small, you'll be able to produce a more quality product and something that people can follow, and it'll make you more dedicated to it as well. And people like to see somebody who's doing it for a while. Use visuals. Pictures speak 1,000 words. So try to use videos and pictures whenever you can to get your message across. Tag other people, meaning involve other people. If you're on Facebook, tag somebody. If you're on Twitter, link to somebody's blog, or put them in a hashtag or something like that. The idea is for them to retweet you and to get your message out, and you guys can work with each other. Be responsible. Islamophobes will try to sometimes attack you. I get a lot of hate speech on my blog. You can either ignore them or try to deal with them in a calm manner. If they don't listen, well then you try. So, it's better not to engage in it, because they will literally just keep fighting with you. And finally, exercise patience. Results don't happen overnight. I've been blogging for 3 years and I got that message. So, nothing happens overnight, but the point is that you tried and you're doing a good job in your community in order to get that message out. So questions we'll take at the end. Here's my contact information and links to my blogs and Twitter. Feel free to reach out to me if you want any more information. Jazakallah khair.
Thank you so much, Wardah. That was wonderful. We're now going to have a 5-minute video from Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim.